Welcome to Litbit channel. Today we will see the origin and growth of classical comedy. Now let's start with the basics. Classical comedy is a form of drama that adheres to the principles and rules of composition established by ancient Greek and Roman playwrights. It focuses on realism, satire, and the corrections of social vice through humor, often portraying the lives of ordinary people. Let's we see the origin and growth in detail of classical comedy. Origins in ancient Greece. Classical comedy begins in ancient Greece, particularly during the 5th century BCE. Aristophanes, a prominent Greek playwright, is considered one of its earliest and greatest practitioners. His works such as Lysistrata, The Clouds and the Frogs, who used satire to critique politics, society and human nature. Next one, Roman adaptation. The Roman inherent the comic traditions from the Greek and adapted it to suit to their culture. Plautus and Terence were two prominent Roman playwrights who developed a more structured and polished form of comedy. Then medieval decline and Renaissance revival. During the medieval period, classical comedy largely declined due to the dominance of religious and moral plays. It was revived during the Renaissance when classical texts were rediscovered and studied in Europe. Ben Jonson and classical comedy in England. Ben Jonson, a contemporary of Shakespeare, is considered the most significant exponent of classical comedy in English literature. His works such as Wellborn and The Alchemist adhered to classical rules by emphasizing realism, satire, and moral correction. Then Molière and classical comedy in France. In 17th century, France, Molière revitalized classical comedy through plays like Tartuffe and The Misanthrope. He blends wit, satire, and short character studies, exposing hypocrisy and pretentiousness in French society. In conclusion part, classical comedy is a timeless dramatic form rooted in the traditions of ancient Greece and Rome. By emphasizing satire, realism, and moral correction, it serves as both entertainment and a critique of human flaws and societal issues. From Aristophanes and Plautus to Ben Jonson and Molière, classical comedy has retaining its core principles, leaving an enduring legacy in the world of drama and literature. Let me recall this chapter. What is realism in classical comedy? Realism in classical comedy refers to depicting everyday life and ordinary people in a believable manner. How does classical comedy separate comic and tragic elements? Classical comedy strict focuses on humor and avoids blending it with serious or tragic elements. Who was the noted exponent of classical comedy in England? Ben Jonson, a contemporary of Shakespeare, was a noted exponent of classical comedy in England. Name two famous works of Ben Jonson. Two famous works of Ben Jonson's are Wellborn and The Alchemist. What is the role of satire in classical comedy? Satire is used in classical comedy to ridicule social flaws, vice, and human follies for corrections and reforms. What are the characteristics of character in classical comedy? Characters in classical comedy often represent societal archetypes or exaggerated traits, serving as vehicle of satire. What is the difference between Greek and Roman comedy? Greek comedy was more politically charged, while Roman comedy focused on domestic life and refined character interaction. How did Ben Jonson defines the purpose of his comedy? Ben Jonson aimed to strip the follies of his times and expose them to criticism through satire. What are some literary devices used in classical comedy? Classical comedy often uses wit, wordplay, irony, and exaggeration. How does classical comedy achieve its moral purpose? Classical comedy achieves its moral purpose by ridiculing societal vices and individual flaws, encouraging reflection and reform. Thank you viewers. Thanks for watching this video.